Thank you all for being here today, and welcome to the 2025 Powering Alabama's Future webinar series hosted by the Alabama Mobility and Power Research Center at the University of Alabama. My name is Elizabeth Pettit. I serve as the Workforce Development Coordinator at the AMP Center and will be hosting today's episode. Now, whether you are new here or a longtime listener, I would like to start us off by sharing a bit about the webinar series and introduce you to our lovely panelists. The goal for this series is to provide those interested in the battery manufacturing and electric vehicle industries with a general understanding of various topics such as infrastructure, mining and supply chains, workforce development, safety, economic development, and the like in the great state of Alabama in easily digestible chunks. This episode is titled Building Battery Infrastructure, Power and Connectivity. It focuses on the development of battery infrastructure, particularly how it influences the charging network and power grid. Now that my long-winded introduction is done, I would like to take a moment for the panelists to introduce themselves. If you could each share your name, affiliation, and what you or your company do, that would be greatly appreciated. Haseen, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Haseen Gundakwala. I'm the Electric Transportation Manager at Alabama Power. And so what my team focuses on is with the educational efforts for the community. So it helps people understand how electric transportation can play a role in their personal lives, how it can play a role in their businesses. Additionally, we, as Alabama Power, have a suite of electric transportation programs, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We also partner with organizations across the state in support of funding or any projects or initiatives that they may have. Thank you.
I'm Michael Staley. I'm president of the Alabama Clean Fuels Coalition. We are a nonprofit with a statewide footprint, and we work in transportation fuels. We work to promote transportation fuels that are alternatives to petroleum, to reduce our nation's dependence on foreign oil, and to promote the economic development opportunities that come from that. The organization, Alabama Clean Fuels Coalition, is under a contract with the state of Alabama as EV consultant to assist state agencies with their work to deploy and support the deployment of charging infrastructure and to support educational outreach activities through a platform called Drive Electric Alabama.
Jason Powers, VP of Sales, ADS Tech Energy. We are a battery buffered level 3 EV charging manufacturer that also does battery energy storage projects as well. Our U.S. headquarters is actually in Auburn, Alabama. We're based out in Nürtingen, Germany, just outside of Stuttgart.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. As you can see, we have a great group of panelists here with us today who bring a wealth of knowledge about the power grid, clean fuels, battery infrastructure, here particular to Alabama. So without further ado, we will dive right in. Now, generally, we have some very structured questions, which we will, but this conversation in particular will also flow back and forth between our participants as they do very similar work and do work on a lot of the same type of projects. So to start us off, I wanted to dive into a question just about the power grid and infrastructure with you, Haseen. How is your company ensuring that Alabama's power grid can support the growing demand for batteries and EVs without compromising reliability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Alabama Power, our number one priority is always reliability. To support this, we've made significant investments in grid modernization, including advanced metering, automation, and more resilient infrastructure. We're also exploring innovative alternatives like battery storage and managed charging to balance the load on the grid. A great example of this is our work at the Technology Application Center, where we partnered with a local manufacturer to demonstrate ultra-fast charging with a battery support. This installation proves that high-power charging is possible without massive grid upgrades showcasing how utilities and technology providers can collaborate to solve real-world challenges. Alabama Power has been a leader in grid planning and forecasting for many years. We see electric vehicles, EVs, and batteries not as a burden, but as a potential source of resiliency for the grid, as long as they're approached in the right way. Our vision is to support the growth of EVs without ever compromising the reliability and the affordability that our customers depend on. To that end, we offer two programs that provide value to our EV driving customers while also boosting the reliability of the entire grid. Our night charging discount and GridWise Plus managed charging programs encourage customers to charge their vehicles when energy demand is low. By charging off-peak, customers can receive a discount on their entire home power bill or earn incentives and gift cards for participating in our managed charging program. So these programs complement each other to have the resiliency and the support of the power company as they look to electrify their vehicles.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And I have definitely heard a lot about those programs from coworkers who have electric vehicles, just on how beneficial they can be and how easy that they can make the transition from a traditional ICE engine over to an electric vehicle. So it is great to have the support of Alabama Power as the state of Alabama does make that transition. And just knowing that our power grid does have that backup flexibility kind of built into that. Now, Michael, I know we were talking a little bit earlier about the programs you get into and just how they are surrounding or pertaining to, I guess, EV chargers. Do you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. So the number of electric vehicles on the road in Alabama has dramatically increased 30, 40, 50% per year since really 2020. At the same time, companies that make cars and parts and batteries and chargers have located or expanded their operations in the state to support jobs and support local economies with that income that people earn. So if you put those two things together, there was a great need for additional charging infrastructure in public locations. People who charge a car at home or at work are going to do so for pennies on the dollar compared to getting gasoline at a gas station. The public charging for people who go outside that range of their car, the fast chargers, what we call them, those chargers are needed. And the state recognized this through leadership of Governor Ivey and really in the wake of Mercedes announcing they were going to be building EVs and a battery plant in Tuscaloosa and Bibb County. And so what resulted from that was a real show of leadership from the state and the legislature and creating a program that has now put over 30 fast chargers in the ground around the state to meet the needs of not only the users of roads who are not from Alabama, but the Alabama folks who are driving EVs. And what's happened now is that's also brought in a lot of private investment. So these are grants that are competitive, and the state of Alabama, through the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs, or ADECA, has funded this program. And there will be in the future an $80 million pot of federal funds called the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, or NEVI. That program will be kicked off after a pause, and when we changed administrations, that program will be kicked off again and is expected to be deployed throughout the state for a robust charging network. And we're very excited about that. And we think that it is important going into the future. EVs are here and they're here to stay. Despite even what people may read, the number of EV sales is still on the rise, and we're excited to be a part of it.
Wonderful. And you bring a lot of information just in that response to the conversation. You talked a lot about funding and dollars that will be flowing not only in the nation, but in the state as well. Do you have any insight on how workforce or particular jobs may be enhanced or maybe more needed in the future? Just as workforce is something I do every single day, we know, of course, the job market will need to grow and expand dramatically to be able to support this new industry. I was hoping to get some of your insight there.
Well, so one thing that's for sure is that electric vehicles can play a big role in the workforce in several ways. First, we have a low labor participation rate in this state of Alabama. And if you can incentivize people into the workforce with affordable electric vehicles, and if you just look at what Ford announced, they're betting the whole company on electric vehicles, on affordable electric vehicles. If an individual can drive to work and charge at their workplace without having to pay for gasoline, that eliminates that transportation cost burden from those folks that may be not able to enter the workforce due to transportation costs. So on that side of the worker, an electric vehicle, when done right, in the right circumstance, can make a huge difference for the workforce or for the employers. We have a very skilled workforce, professionals throughout the state. One of the things that my organization is working to promote is the idea that employers who are looking for skilled workers, let's say, for example, a company that does HVAC work, they have certified HVAC workers, maybe they've got some electricians. If they can cross-certify those workers to be able to work on, install, operate, and maintain an EV charger, then that company will be able to offer a new line of work. Their employee will have a new skill. And if they also combine that with taking kids out of high school that can get, certifications to become apprentices, to learn about these different trades and skills, then the workforce around EV can grow and commensurate with the market. And I think it can help people to have that upskilling. And also, companies that are coming into Alabama, even from around the country and around the world, companies locating here, as the demand rises, are going to have a need for additional employees. And so I think that's a very important topic as well to be able to fill those positions.
Yes, you touched on a lot of things that we here at the AMP Center work on and that we discuss in later episodes as well, particularly that low participation rate. So I won't get too far into it, but we definitely agree with that. You hit the nail on the head, something that we certainly need to expand more and take advantage of there. For our very last question, I have one for you, Jason. How is your company leveraging smart grid technologies and renewable energy solutions to support the expansion of battery and EV infrastructure in Alabama? And then a second piece to that, what steps are being taken to ensure the sustainability and reliability of this growth?
Sure. So a couple different answers I'll give you on that. One of them is the core technology behind our products is a battery buffered solution. And what that does is it provides grid resiliency. It provides a situation where you don't have to wait, 6 months, 12 months for a transformer. Those projects get really lengthy. So our implementation times with a battery buffered solution are much shorter. We're able to go into areas where the grid is limited, rural areas that don't have, the infrastructure to come in and put, 350 kW and more into those areas. And we only really require, 50 to 110 kVA to output the same as a normal level 3 charger would at that speed. So our time to implementation is much shorter. The projects with the batteries can scale. So you can have, one battery and daisy chain them with multiple chargers behind it. So you can really ramp up quickly without the need for all the additional infrastructure. The other part, kind of tail into what Michael was saying, is that, we, based in Auburn, almost all of our employees are recent graduates from engineering and marketing schools. They're at Auburn University. And as our manufacturing scales up, we're about to bring a product with a larger battery pack as well as battery energy storage to the U.S. That's going to create more opportunities for the workforce, both for the manufacturing side as well as, marketing and sales and other opportunities as well. We've done some of the partnerships in Alabama, like with the Scenes Group with Alabama Power at the TAC in Calera, where they have one of our units on site to really for a showcase to show how you can cut, 60-70% of the power needed for one of these fast chargers, and you don't always have to have the infrastructure that's typically been required for these projects in the past. We've also got situations, Long Lewis Ford, where we partnered with them to provide chargers in areas where the infrastructure was limited, like Prattville and other areas that are kind of out in the country where you wouldn't typically find chargers at that speed, and yet they're right in front of their dealerships, providing those for public use as well as their own fleets.
That is awesome. I love that you spoke to just general project implementation time, because as we know, that can take a very, very, very long time in some circumstances. Can you give an example of a timeline for charger installation in a more rural area?
Sure. So, we're not quite as dependent on the utility as you would normally find. Typically you have to wait on that large transformer to come in, which a lot of times is the lengthiest, portion of the project. So for us, you've got some concrete work, you've got some, a little bit of electrical, things like that. But typically from the time we get an order to a full implementation may only be 2 to 3 months. Versus, I've seen them upwards of 2 years on a standard level 3 DCFC. That's a direct to grid solution. So that's typical. I think the one that went in there at Alabama Power might have even been shorter than that, just due to the experience that their own engineers had with implementing these kinds of solutions.
Well, that timeline is fantastic, especially as we expand the number of EVs on the road and needing more of these charging stations in the state. So I had no idea you guys were just quite that quick, but that is wonderful. To close off our discussion, I have a question for all of our guests here today. So please feel free to jump in as necessary. As more battery charging stations are built across the state, what job opportunities are being created in the fields of electrical work, installation, and grid management? I know we touched on that a little bit. I just wasn't sure if you guys had anything very specific or a specific skill that you see really coming on the market.
I think for our side of it, skills in the high voltage sector are important, because these batteries, as well as the connections to the grid, are really high voltage type situations, and you want somebody with that experience. So for us, we have our own engineers, but we also work through reseller groups, and having those groups go out and hire engineers and technicians for the installations and maintenance of these high voltage systems is important. So that's definitely a skill that's been being taught in some of the universities locally. We've been able to hire people directly out of college that already have some of those skill sets.
Yeah, what I would add as well is that Alabama Power has a partnership with Bevel State Community College. Historically, it's been an HVAC training center, but now they offer classes for vehicle and EVSE installation as well. I think that with the adoption continuing to grow, like Michael and Jason have alluded to, is that we will see growth in large areas. It won't just be necessarily the charger side, but also on the vehicle side. The OEMs will need to upskill their workforce as well. Anything that happens in the battery space will require engineers and a diverse skill set as well. So across the state, this is very meaningful and impactful for the workforce of the state, and the skills that will be required for this next generation of vehicles.
And I'll add that while the installations of the high-powered chargers might require a master electrician to be present or involved through certain certifications like the EV ITP, there are also opportunities for certifications that can enable people to be able to troubleshoot the hardware, even maybe remotely, for an EV charging station, where those problems will keep the network operable. And if someone can have that skill and be able to work in the field of diagnosing the problems and helping to keep the networks active, that will also help adoption. And another thing that really benefits communities is when people stop and charge in a community and spend money, that leaves tax revenue for the community, and that can support growth as well, and that can support growth that could even be like an industrial park being developed and things where, as communities grow together, the revenue goes up and opportunities increase. And this is one piece of the puzzle, but it's an important one for the future, especially in a globally competitive automotive market, to keep our state on the top of the list of American manufacturers of vehicles.
What a wonderful way to wrap up this discussion. And Michael, you said it best. This is just one piece of the puzzle. Not only is that true for charging and grid infrastructure, but also for the workforce and just the range of careers that are on the horizon that are coming up, the skills that are needed. You, Jason, brought up high voltage safety. That is something that we are working on here at the AMP Center, as well as you mentioned, around the state, and just making sure that our young people are equipped with a range of skills to enter the EV and battery industries in whatever capacity they see fit. So this has just been a very insightful discussion surrounding that battery infrastructure piece of the puzzle. As always, the AMP Center thanks you for your continued support and jumping in on projects such as this. And for our listeners out there, be on the lookout for our upcoming webinar episodes. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at empettitt@ua.edu or the AMP Center directly at ampcenter@ua.edu. See you next time.